Julia, do you want to welcome our guests?
Sure, I will. Yes, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the ARWO Liquid Knowledge webinar. We're a proud sponsor of today's webinar. I'm Julia McCusker from CoBank. For those of you who don't know much about ARWO, it's the voice and knowledge of the regional water and wastewater organizations. ARWO is building a community to advance the interests of regional water and wastewater organizations. Regional water organizations are unique for a number of reasons. They stretch across multiple political jurisdictions and serve customers who are often spread out over the rural, suburban, and urban areas. Many of the communities served by regional water organizations have historically been unserved or underserved. Regional water benefits from economies of scale. They may share administrative or other systems. They are generally structured in a way that allows them to stay out of local politics so they can make long-term decisions and are able to be as innovative as their big city counterparts. These characteristics frequently result in lower rates for the customers and, more importantly, a stable balance sheet. One great way to learn more about ARWO and regional water organizations is to attend these webinars. So thank you again for tuning in today. We have a great speaker, and it's an honor for me to introduce him. Glenn Marzluf is the General Manager and CEO at Delco Water in Delaware, Ohio. He's a past chair of ARWO and continues to serve as an ARWO board member. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Glenn.
Thank you, Julia. Wow, that was great how you introduced the regional water systems. You did a great job talking about the differences between us and our counterparts. So I am going to share my screen, and then we can get started. All right, so hopefully everyone's seeing my screen. Again, thanks for being here today. On behalf of the Association of Regional Water Organizations, we're glad to share this content. So the data-driven utility, this slideshow originally, the original draft was done 2021, I think, so several years ago. And of course, it was updated for this, and we've done a lot of things, innovative things since then. But I'll be kind of referencing maybe the origins of it a couple times through there as we move forward along with the new content. Probably most of you know who Delco Water is already if you've attended these webinars before. I've been able to facilitate several of them in the past myself. But we are a large regional utility serving the area just north of Columbus in central Ohio. We have the largest single retail service area in the state of Ohio, covering about 830 or so square miles. We have 33 elevated tanks, 3 water treatment plants that operate daily, 2,300-ish miles of pipelines, and we're up to about 57,000 connections at this point. Mostly surface water, but we do have a groundwater water plant as well. But most of our source and treatment is through surface water. We are a 501c12 nonprofit cooperative. So this is something that Julia mentioned before about the nimbleness and ability to stay out of local politics. We are not a subdivision of the state. We're a co-op, and we're here to serve our members. So certainly sets us apart. I know we're not unique to the ARWO members, but maybe some of you have never been familiar with the cooperative way that versus the more traditional municipal utility. But we're based on the same tax designation and very similar to what a rural electric co-op is, if you know what that is. First slide I'm going to share with you is one of our consultants, Arcadis. Every year they host what they call the C-Suite Summit, easy for me to say. And the slide you're seeing here is the building blocks of what they consider a future-ready utility, right? So you got to be resilient, got to be able to overcome all the different things we're seeing with climate change and strange weather patterns, all that type of stuff going on. Agile. Talk about cross-training here. That's something, boy, that Delco Water's endeavored to do for many years. Very difficult to find time and adequate capacity to cross-train, large groups of folks. But certainly that's a best practice if you can get that done. And you see a few other things in there. People-centered. This is very much an employee-centered organization here at Delco Water. We are very focused on our associates and empowering them to do the great work that they do and to serve our members. And then the last one, the one we're focused on here today, is digitally enabled, right? optimized, aligned, and efficient. How do we use data to make ourselves better at our craft and purpose in industry? So that's the type of things we're going through today. So with that, Gina, if you don't mind launching, we've got several polls here. I think we've got 4 or 5 here today. And the first one is just based on what we've talked about so far, what you know of being a digital utility, how far along are you on your digital transformational journey? Gina, are you able to get this done?
Yeah, you should be seeing the poll on your screen now. We're getting
Okay.
some good returns, yes.
All right.
We've got about half the vote in. Any other takers? Okay, I'm going to end the poll.
Can the viewers see the results like I can?
Yes. Yes, so we have no one who said they're complete. 44% said significant progress, with more than 50% on the journey. A third, early onset, just beginning our journey to the digital age, and almost a quarter, not yet, not started.
Okay, well, we'll see if everyone thinks that's the same at the end of this thing, because digital utility, it's a pretty broad category. So I have a feeling some of you that don't think you're very far along might be further along than you might think. All right, I'm back sharing my screen, so I'm going to keep moving on this. And disclaimer here right up front, I didn't want to put this before the poll, but our journey is far from complete, right? We're still very early in this effort ourselves. And I'm not going to give you all the answers to what it is to be digitally enabled and to arrive at the digital transformative location that we're all striving to get there, but I'm going to give you some insights. We participate in American Waterworks Association, their utility benchmarking survey that they do every year, and the results related with that. And that's a way that you can start benchmarking yourself against other utilities. I found that there's so many utilities that serve within AWWA that are municipal and kind of smaller in nature, that you got to be really considerate about which one of those benchmarks that you utilize, really to consider whether you're best in class or not. But it is certainly a way to find out which key performance indicators maybe you might want to track. And like say, if you can't track to it, then you can't manage to it, right? So you have to start tracking things to get better to that. The data-centric organization, right? So you have all these different pieces of technology and practices, and they all feed this kind of center hub and provide data to the organization. But the challenge is, how do you capture that data, and how do you make it available to decision makers, available to department heads, possibly available to the front end associates that are doing the work every day, and enable those that are making those decisions that could benefit from the data? How do you make it available to them? That's a big challenge, and I certainly can say we're not fully arrived at being a fully data mature utility at this point. I've already talked to you a couple times about being an employee-centric organization, and these are like the 3 pillars of the stool for the employee experience, right? The physical environment, what's the building like that you're working in, what's the vehicle like that you drive, that type of thing, the culture of the organization, and the third is technology. What type of technology to use? Do they interface with every day to get their work done? So we've put a pretty significant investment these last few years. In 2021, we onboarded an asset management system, an enterprise asset management system called Maximo. 2025, this just went live the end of January, early February. Oracle's another huge platform, their customer care system, CCS. We use Hawk WIMS for a laboratory management system. 360 Water, we have several other things in play on here. I know we're talking about Microsoft 365 a little bit later, but these are like the types of technology that we've invested in. I arrived here about 13 years ago. The system, we did have, the field staff were already enabled with map viewers that they could take with them in the field, but they did not have connectivity to the internet. Basically, whenever they came onto campus, they could sync those maps and get any updates, but it was an an AutoCAD-based map, right? So there was no intelligence behind the line work. It was just the line work. It might tell you the size of the pipe and essentially where it might be located with, adjacent to the roadway, that kind of stuff, but not a mature mapping system at that point. Our work order system was still paper-based, and we did have an older computer management maintenance system, but it was limited in use and has since been replaced. We told you we had onboarded that Maximo in 21. So here's like the timeline of that same type of thing. We added our first GIS professional in 13 and really has made significant efforts towards that. We actually did 2 separate customer information system, billing system updates since I've arrived in 13. We did one just after I got here, and just the other one just went live here this year I told you about, along with some other things. We're going to do another poll for you. So field mapping, right? This is something, a way that you can use data and put it in the hands of the frontline workers, right? How can they be better, more efficient at getting their work done? Well, if you can give them up-to-date maps, if you can give them data, information behind those work orders and everything, then that can help them. So Gina, go ahead and share the second poll if you can about field mapping. And she's already done so. Perfect. So at this point, Delco does have hotspots in most of our vehicles, or else they've got tablets that are internet enabled. And most of our field crews have internet that they can take with them throughout the majority of our system. We do have a few areas that have limited internet availability. So we've got a couple like systems that will automatically sync themselves on and off of internet when they're available. All right, we're getting close to the end. So maybe I'll just talk to you about the results here, but looks like about half of you, oh, I lost it, Gina. Do you have it? There we go. About half of you have internet service for your crews. Nobody's on full paper maps, right? So at least some digital technology is for all the respondents that have said that. So mostly digital mapping, some without intelligent data, some have the full GIS. And then looks like one of you have a linear asset management system with work order tracking. And that's one thing we're going to talk about here in a little bit. That's something Delco is doing. Please put me back on to screen sharing if you haven't already done that, Gina. So I'll keep moving on this. So the GIS, I told you this is a people-centered organization, and our people work in the map routinely. This is very much a GIS-centered way we do our work. There's some exceptions, certainly within the maintenance division when we talk about our vertical assets, but almost everything horizontal, including customer metering, that type of stuff. We do a lot of work through the GIS. Here's an image of it. So we use a separate mapping application, and within that has workflows. So I'll highlight some of these here, right? So within this, there's a tab for workflows, and within this, we do like our water quality flushing, backflow work, any type of other inquiry, flow testing, and then we track other things, like, for instance, we allow customers to pay for an initial tap-in fee over a 5-year period. So our folks that track our taps, track our new customers, they'll have separate layers for that, separate layers for new subdivisions and all that kind of stuff. So we do an awful lot within the mapping system. And then that creates a whole routine, builds the database information behind it, tracks it. We track all of our leaks, leak and line break repairs, all that type of stuff, so we can take that into consideration later. So a geographic information system, it's more than just the map. So this is the data behind the map, right? So you've got that asset management. It's tracking those linear assets, telling you how old they are, when they went into service, what type of material they are. And then with the break history, you can make decisions about what's the appropriate thing to do with that pipeline, perhaps. You can, with the spatial analysis, you can show a map and say, well, where are we having issues? And it might show a concentration of leaks in one specific area, one specific zone. And you say, well, maybe we have some water hammer or something like that in that area. Talk to you about the way we use our GIS for day-to-day operations, right? We actually use the GIS to start work orders, to complete work orders, to track, and to view, all those things. And then ultimately all that information for the line work feeds into our hydraulic model, and we keep our own in-house, and we use it regularly to make decisions when it comes to adding new infrastructure and that type of stuff. Just today, we signed the check for 2 new, very high-end global positioning system GPS locators that we're giving to our utility locating staff, right? So these ones have the ability to pick up the satellite signal even within a significant tree canopy, something that I've always complained about before. It's like, yeah, it works okay in the wintertime, but if you get any leaves out there, we can't figure anything out. You spend all this money, this new GIS, and we've been truing up the location of our assets. So we're hoping to get down to the sub-foot, to the inch type thing for accuracy. And now we've given this new tool actually works really well, so the locators can take this with them, and anything that's been already geo-corrected within the GIS, they can locate very accurately on site in almost any condition. We've got a pretty significant drone program. This is an older one, Phantom. I don't think we actually have these in production anymore. We might still have one of these Phantom 4s left. But we do several things. One of the things that's a little bit different that you might not think of is we actually track our residual removal, both the removal, but also the available volume storage that we have left, to make decisions about, boy, do we need to call the contractor back in? How long can we operate without getting in trouble with overflowing any of our sludge lagoons, right? So we use it for that type of stuff, plus water tower and installations. Anytime we do a new construction project, we'll fly it with the drone ahead of time, for that pre-existing footage, so that we can understand if we did damage something or not. And then something else that's kind of out of the box, we have a lot of road improvements here. So we actually can take ortho photos and geo-correct based on new footage that we've flown to the drone. So here's an example of a road that just had a roundabout added here a couple years ago. So you see the existing before the roundabout, and then when the roundabout went in, we took the drone up there, we flew it up there, and this has been geo-referenced and geo-corrected. So it's very accurate, and it just blends into the existing mapping that's outside the constraints of that new fly zone that we did with the drone, right? So a really practical use that we can update our maps based on current conditions, but without having to fly the entire county or the entire region again. We're in 8 different counties, so being able to just pick specific spots and update them through the use of this technology is really helpful. We're an employee-centered organization. I've already talked to you several times about that. But we're getting ready to launch, we were getting ready to launch a new GPS tracking system with our vehicles. So, we told all our employees we wanted to bring them in and make them feel as comfortable as they can about it, that we're not just doing this to be a watchdog and to take action on them for taking a 35-minute lunch instead of a 30-minute lunch. That's not what we're about around here. But we have this capability now to track all of our vehicles. Every single vehicle in our entire fleet is geolocated except for one, and I'll just let you guess which one is not, as I'm not going to tell you which one that is. But we can make decisions based on who is in a vicinity, based on what type of vehicle it is. If we need to have somebody run out there and get on a valve to close it for us, well, we know which vehicles have valve keys, which ones don't. Same thing with maintenance crews. If we have an issue at a booster station, a valve station, we can make those decisions. So yet another poll for you. What are you doing with your fleet? Are you geo-tracking your fleet? I thought we were like the last ones to do it. That's what how I addressed it to the staff. Like, everyone else is doing this already, right? But turns out that was not the case. I was quite wrong. A lot of folks have not done that yet. Do you use that data to make decisions? Do you decide? Do you make any decisions? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the mapping to do it, but do you make any decisions about when to roll a truck, right? Based on the data you're seeing, right? If you've got a meter that routinely gives you a bad reading, are you going to bother going to do a double check to put visual?
Glenn, I think your camera may have frozen up there. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results while hopefully Glenn gets back online. There we go.
Yeah, here I am. I don't know. I didn't disconnect anything, but we didn't do a lot of time there. So it looks like about 1/3 are doing the full GPS tracking, and you're using that data. I mean, that's great that you're using that data to make decisions moving forward. And I lost the rest of the data, but I'm sure it was
Sorry
very meaningful.
about that. Let me see
It's
if
all
I can
right.
bring that back up for you.
If not, we can move on. I've got a lot of content to cover still. So,
There we go.
oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, just some of you use the data to make decisions on it, and then there's some other information too, and a couple of you haven't done anything yet with your fleet, and that's okay. I thought that we were the last ones to do it, but I've been proven wrong even before we went live with this thing, that there's actually a lot of organizations that don't. Our next point where we're going to talk to you about how we use data is with our 2020 master plan. And this is a little bit different than most of the time when utility systems do a master plan. You hire some consultant like Arcadis, already referenced them before, somebody like them to come in and take your information and build you an outlook for the next 20 years based on the conditions and their opinion. We did a little bit differently. We actually did this in-house. We had at the time a consulting engineer that was working for us. He'd spent his whole career with us. He's since retired, but he used his experience from in the past and the time that extra time he had available during COVID. Did a lot of this from home to build this master plan. But how do we use data to make good decisions? So rather than just going to the local we call it more the Council of Governments, the folks that kind of project out what they expect population demands to be. We were more intentional about our system. We think we know our system better than they would. We operate it every day. We know the township a little bit better, and we went parcel by parcel and did an analysis of what we thought that parcel would be based on zoning and also based on just our understanding of the townships and how they're developing. And then we use the existing information from our customer use, right? So you see several things on your campgrounds and general commercial data centers, schools, hotels, medical office building, all that kind of stuff. And based on what our existing customers use, and within that region even of our system, what does a condominium complex look like in Liberty Township, which is very affluent, versus maybe one of our more rural townships? It looked differently, right? So we took that data and we analyzed every parcel that was not developed that was over 10 acres, I believe it was, within the entire service area, and did a specific focus here in Delaware County where development demand is much higher. And we made the decisions for our future demand based on that, right? So you see 2025, again, this was published in 20, so 2025 and 2030 and 35 and 40, the eventual build out that we think we'll be at, and the type of use and the water demand from it, right? So that's the way we built our master plan, using data to make decisions to build our master plan for the future. We're a growing system. I know I didn't focus on this too much before, but between what I've told you about the master plan and other things, you can tell that. Growing pretty significantly over the last, particularly 25 years, late 90s to now. And then we look forward, we've got a couple different scenarios for the speed at which we build out. We're pretty confident we're going to be building out the system for the next half century or more. But how quickly do we grow? What's the water increase look like? This just shows the demands for average day and max day at all our plants, and then aggregates us together. But the big bottom line here is that we go from max day, and max day drives most of our decisions here at Delco Water because we have a significant outdoor water demand for lawn sprinkling. So a max day of about 24 up to 60 over the next 20 years or so is what the plan was suggesting. Let's skip through some of this for time. One thing that we didn't do a lot with is reinvestment, right? We're a growing system. We have reinvested significantly in some of the villages and cities that we've acquired over the years. But we don't have a long history of break data, and we're doing a good job tracking it now. I feel like we're doing probably about as good as anyone out there is doing, but we have not been doing a good job for a long time. So we don't have a lot of back data. And quite frankly, our pipe stock is pretty reliable, absent of contractors digging into us out there in the field or some kind of issue like that. We don't have a system that has a whole lot of line breaks. So we haven't really spent a lot of time reinvestment. It's mostly been on growth related. another poll for you, right? So planning and capital. Are you using data today to help you with your capital improvement program? So first we're asking you, do you have a multi-year CIP? If you do, are you using data in any way? I gave you a few examples of ways that we use it, ways you could use it. And then the next thing is, are you actually using, like we're using our Maximo program to track our CIP program. All our projects are in there. They track the finances, all that kind of stuff. So using something actually to track delivery of your program in the future. And then the lead and copper rule is one specific program that lends itself to data. We had about, well, I want to guess between 20 and 30,000 meter cards that were scanned in using AI technology. Somewhere on that meter card, it had the material type for the utilities line, for the public side, and for the private side. And we didn't have to go through one at a time and identify that. So we had a third-party vendor come and scan all those in and use that technology and deliver to us a database that included every single one of those cards that had the data available and the result, and with significant updates. We only have, I think, like 7,000 or 8,000 unknowns out of 57,000 connections. So we're in pretty good shape. And of course, our system's pretty new, so that's also puts us in a pretty good position. So we got the results here. Looks like almost half used the data in some way to inform on the lead and copper rule. That's excellent. I'm glad that we're thinking of ways to use data to our advantage for these big, heavy lifts. And over half of you use data to prioritize your CIP program, and almost everybody has a multi-year CIP. So that's great news. That's a good way to consider yourselves a data-driven digital utility is if you're using it to make decisions like CIP. All right, let's hop back to my screen if we can. Next thing I'll talk to you about is unaccounted for water. Our annual water loss year over year runs in the 13.5 or so percentage, which is pretty good. American Water Works would tell us that for a system of our size with that much pipeline, we're near best in class the way it is right now. Minimal leakage. You see the one down there, 1.0. So we're in pretty good shape, but we still want to be master at this craft. So we have invested significantly in leak detection. We've done a couple of cutting edge things, worked with Estera with their satellite leak detection program. Smart Aqua is new to market. We actually did some piloting with them, and we're pretty impressed with their AI system. I'm going to give away something from the future. We don't have an entire meter inventory of AMI, advanced metering infrastructure. A lot of it's drive-by, so we will only have one meter reading per month. And to make these, the more data you have to put into these learning and these AI-based models, the better results it can give you. But it still was pretty high quality. We've onboarded a K9 unit. Keena's been with us. It's going to be a couple years now, probably 18 months now, and it'll be 2 years this fall that she's actually been fully trained and out there working on things. So the data we get from those first two things, along with our thermal imaging drone, help us to work on the program, right? So we get an area of streets that are highly likely to possibly have a leak, areas of interest they call it, and then we'll send Keena out there to investigate that more, or our leak detection drone, which it's actually a thermal imaging drone that we know it does a good job identifying surfacing leaks, but potentially it could identify non-surfacing leaks. This is kind of an early program out there. And I already told you about the meter stock. We are putting all cell-based units in at this point. We're using mostly Beacon products, but we've gone to cell-based units, so we're getting much better data now prospectively. Anytime we have to do either a change of an existing or any new meter goes in the ground, we're adding about 1,000 meters per year. It's always based on that technology. Financials. Now, this is something that I think our industry has done a better job at, and it's a little bit more easier for us to understand because it's been more pervasive throughout not just the water industry, but throughout business for many years, is using data financially to make decisions. And we've done a pretty good job. So we've done a pretty significant job in changing the way we budget, trying to be much more true. Historically, I think our department heads would pad their budgets just in case, and we've tried to be them a little bit truer. Like if you have a reason to spend more money than you budgeted for, we'll take that back to the board and we'll get approval for it. But don't just assume that everything is going to break all at once, and we need to protect everything, the worst scenario. So we have a more realistic budget. We used to come in like, I don't know, 86% or something like that of our operating budget, and it's no longer like that anymore. We're much closer to being true up on that. That same type of data that we told we used for the master plan, we also use that to build out future revenue. So we project out how many taps we're going to add in each one of those metering districts I showed you before. And if we add a customer in Liberty Township, we expect a different level of revenue than if we added one to Brown Township, which is a very rural township. It's just an example, right? So we're very intentional about how we use data and how we project revenues and expenditures and everything on the financial side as well. And we work with Stantec to provide a pretty comprehensive model. Both operating and capital go into this, along with rate making. It's kind of all together in this package, and that we get serviced through our relationship with Stantec. And there are other very fine ones out there that do that. And in fact, this last year, effective just May 1st of this year is actually when it went into effect. But just with this new fiscal year, we've changed our entire rate structure to highly incentivize and put a price signal for outdoor water use, but incentivize using less water outdoors. It's a pretty strong price signal once you get up to over 4,000 gallons, particularly you get over 10,000. So there's a strong price signal there. Adding some reserve. So here's a spot where we used data pretty recently. We had a developer come to us very, was that upset, but very concerned about our capacity fees for multifamily, right? So you see a couple single family in the upper right, and then the multifamily type you might see elsewhere in our system. So we actually went through and looked at their data, but then we stepped back and we said, how does our own data dictate how a multifamily unit uses water versus a single family home? And we decided that we were, in fact, overcharging for those capacity fees, that a multifamily dwelling is a much more efficient use of water. So we reduced our tap-in fees for multifamily based on the results of that analysis that we did with data. We participated in an international project with Arcadis here. It includes folks from Australia, Canada, and some other spots, and many in the United States that work on innovation programs. IT, I hit a little bit on this at the summit in January, but we've done the AWEA cyber assessment like everyone else, and we've really done some pretty intentional things. We're finishing up the original recommendations out of that. We've done a very big focus to cloud-based activities. We actually have backup as a service, right? So we pay our third-party consultant to do all our backups, make sure it works. The Maximo product, the Oracle product, Microsoft 365, they're all cloud-based, right? So we're taking as much as we can off our own servers and moving them up to the cloud as a very intentional effort. I'm going to skip through. Maybe I'll hit on this real quickly, but Darktrace is a monitoring device that sits on our network and scans it for irregular activity. So for instance, it's always on there, and if I decide today that I'm going to get into a platform I don't usually use, like I don't usually get into the accounts payable software. I have a way where I can check on the checks we're sending out and that kind of stuff, but that's through a Maximo, that's through a different way. But if I went on and got into our AP software today, it would flag it and possibly just stop my use of that, saying, this individual, Glenn Marzluf, rarely gets into that product. Why is he doing it? And it will send a signal to our IT team and decide whether that's legitimate or not. Mentioned our use of laboratory tracking software, LIMS. We use Hawk WIMS for that. We did recently do a full upgrade on our distribution SCADA. So we historically used radios, very, very traditional technology for that, and went to a full cell-based unit back in 21, 22, in that range. And we did a lot of that in-house. We did have a contractor do some of that with us. Our HR, we use a third-party platform in the cloud, Paylocity for that. There's several others out there that do similar things. But we no longer have paper evaluations. Nobody clocks in or out with a time card, right? They're all doing that online or through an app. The W-2s, all that kind of stuff, that's all kept in the cloud. So we produce minimal paper that way. So I think this is our last poll. We're asking you, what other kind of systems are you using digital solutions for? Human resources, lab, SCADA. Do you have an asset management system, a CMMS, something that you're tracking all your work in? So if you don't mind going ahead and filling that out, we'll give you the results of that here in just a second. And this is great. Like most of you are using all the above, right? That's fantastic. That's exactly what we'd hope for. So the majority of you are not punching time clocks anymore. Maybe a couple of you are. Or maybe you're doing just paper timesheets, right? Maybe that's probably more realistic in this age. I don't know how many folks actually have a time clock in their office, but you might just have a sheet that you fill out every week and you said, I work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. All right, looks like we're pretty much finished here. Most cases, looks like almost 2/3 of you have implemented every single one of these things. So whether it's the same 2/3 or whether somebody did the HR software and somebody else did the SCADA, I guess it's difficult to understand that, but across the board, almost 2/3 of those that are participating have checked in that we're using each of these technologies. So there's a lot of very digitally enabled utilities represented here today. All right, Gina, I'm going to get back on with my presentation. So our maintenance side, we have this fully enabled vertical computer maintenance management system, CMMS. We do a lot of proactive work to that order, thermal imaging. We do check on our, all of the electric along with pulleys. We do vibration analysis, and there's also some listening devices that we use from time to time on some of these things to really identify if they're working properly. Ultrasonic greasing, right? So why we grease, we're listening at the same time, and when you get the optimized sound, that's when we stop greasing, right? Because we found the proper amount of product to get the job done. Oil analysis, that type of thing. So an enterprise asset management system, transformational. Almost every associate in this organization uses Maximo in one way or another. Some of them might use it through another program, might use it through the GIS or through some other things, but for the most part, everyone uses it in some capacity, either the mobile platform or the direct platform. We do our procurement through that now. That's how we do all of our ordering and inventory, something that we were I would say I don't want to say worst in class, but we certainly were not best in class back 2018, 2019. We just had one really seasoned professional that could tell just by walking to the room what we needed, what we use a lot of, what we needed more of, and knew who to call and how to get that done. Well, when he went to retire, we took a really hard look at the way we were managing inventory. And as part of the move to Maximo, we decided to take everything, move it through that. So we've got strict ordering points. We manage inventory much better. Very intentionally, we're not the tightest in the world. We still want to be able to get things done. We don't want to be so bureaucratic that folks can't come in, that we take that agility part of that future-proof utility out. We still want to be agile and get things done, but still want to provide a reasonable amount of control over inventory. One of the big things we've been working on, and I would say we probably haven't fully arrived on this yet, but that item number 2 for our goals, create a culture that will drive complete and consistent data on all assets. So we are in the luxurious position of having fairly new infrastructure that is extremely reliable. So we have time to build an appropriate set of data to make better decisions for when it comes time for us to renew and reinvest in this infrastructure. Hopefully we'll have the correct amount of data available to us to make proper decisions at the proper time, right? We want to maximize the value of each asset to our ratepayers, our members. We hit on Maximo a little bit. Integrations is something that's really important, right? So we told you we do our procurement through Maximo. Well, that works back through our AP system and through our accounting system, the GIS. They've got several configured integrations there. Already talked about inventory, how that works, and the customer information system. We just onboarded a brand new one, and we had to rebuild that integration now with the ARWO product from before. Not everything works exactly like you want it to. We're really excited about the called beacons. These are like they sound. They're little pieces of hardware that sit in various rooms. And the concept behind it was, well, they were going to store all of the work orders that were assigned to that, say, that valve station. And when we would send a tech into that valve station, they would pull out their piece of hardware and it would say, okay, I've got these 7 items to do. I think we configured 1 or 2 of those things. I think we bought 30 of them. It just, that part of it was not a high priority and it just didn't get done. Since then, we've done a couple of 3D models. We're working on, that's the next thing we're working on is ArcGIS indoors, GIS indoors, something like that. And we've got a little bit of that work done already. Got the floating solar array in here. We track production. We're trying to get it so we can track it by the different solar arrays. We've got the floating solar in the reservoir system, and then we've got solar on a couple of rooftops, and just trying to find out the productivity and the value that we're getting from that. The strategic plan, something that historically we've done, and I would say we've done probably below adequate to adequate at best of tracking and delivering on past master plans. Well, we actually went to a third-party piece of software, specifically, again, cloud-based, because that's what we're doing, but cloud-based to help us track implementation of this, to make sure it's not just a strategic plan that sits on the shelf and gets dusty, but we're actually putting that into practice. One of the next things we're working on, right? So this is something that's been on my mind for quite a while. I already focused on it a little bit before, but we have the biggest problem in Ohio, and one of the biggest problems in the Midwest, at least for a sizable utility, for seasonal water demand based on lawn sprinkling outside, right? We have a very affluent customer base. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 in 5 have in-ground sprinkler systems, and in the southern part of our system, it's much higher than that. Maybe it's 1 in 2, 1 in 3 in the southern part of our system. So how do we, how can we get the data to allow us to make better decisions on how we manage our assets related to that seasonal use? So the example I'd use is a couple times in the past decade, we've had tanks that were draining to the point that we thought we were going to lose an entire pressure zone, because even though we had all of our pumps turned on, we were pumping all the water we could into a particular pressure zone, trying to fill the tank up. The demand of the customer sprinkling water was greater, and they were draining the tank anyhow, right? So is there a way for us to build a model that looks at the weather for the last 10 days, looks at the weather forecast for the next 10 days, and looks at how our customers have used water in the past, given similar type of circumstances, and can give us a projected demand that we can take and put into our water model and decide, yeah, we might be draining that tank. We might be having a problem here. So we can proactively get in front of folks. That'd be a big help. Last time we tried to reactively do it, it really didn't work out well for us. We tried to implement our reverse 911 type calling system, and it just didn't work the way we wanted to. That's the content I have for you, and looks like I'm pretty close to time anyhow. So this is probably a good time for me to stop. But a data-centric organization, again, right? You take all the different ways you're acquiring data in your system, and how can you take that data and make it readily available to those that can use that data and make better decisions, better outcomes for work. So I'm going to stop sharing, Gina, and we can open it up. Maybe I don't know if you got any questions yet or not, but
we do have a number of questions, Glenn. So I'm going to share my screen here. I want to make sure that we adequately thank our sponsor, CoBank, today. We don't do this alone, so thank you very much.
Thank you, CoBank.
Yeah. Before we get into the questions, I just want to mention, if you're on the call, and we do have a number of non-members on our call today. If you're not a member, you can join ARWO by May 31st. and get 40% off of your organization's 2025 dues. You can scan the QR code and sort of raise your hand, if you will, to be contacted by our membership director, Carolyn Ward, and her contact information is also there on the screen. So we'll leave that up for a while we talk about the questions, and we do have a number of really good questions today. So thank you all for contributing to. There's a whole series of questions about technology, and the first one is, so you've implemented a number of new software applications at an enterprise scale. These projects can turn into real headaches to implement, often unexpectedly. What lessons have you learned in contracting and deployment that can help utilities head off similar challenges?
Well, it's certainly about planning. We were fortunate enough, we acquired a key associate during the pandemic. The consulting firm he was working for kind of stopped doing operations. They tended to go into utilities and start working on this. And he'd been doing work for us. And we brought the individual on and as a great background in doing enterprise type evaluations and implementations. So tends to be our key project manager on these things. And we're very intentional about who we hire to help us from the outside. We have had professional implementers on both the CIS, the most recent CIS, and on the Enterprise Asset Management System, Maximo. And it helps having somebody on the inside that's managing the project that has that kind of background too. And it's a luxury that probably most utilities don't have, right? It was just, even we didn't have it, prior to that 2020 when everything just flew apart because the coronavirus. So I think being very intentional, taking your time to pick the right implementers is one of the most important things. There are gonna be things that come up that you didn't anticipate. And just being fully aware of that, keeping support on a few months past go live, I think is really important. Listening, that's something, we had such a hard time launching our enterprise asset management system. We launched it in 2021, kind of on the back end of COVID, and everybody put off their vacations until we went go live. And then we took our vacations and then things didn't go too well. So that would be something I'd say, just be very intentional about how you roll it out, and working with change management with your folks. Our folks they've had enough change, and they wouldn't mind if we didn't do any more enterprise type projects for a little while. So you certainly have to be sensitive to just the entire capacity and ability of the staff to take on new projects, and take your time. Be very intentional about it. Pick the right product and the right team, and certainly talk to those who have done it before you, that have particular experience with both your implementer and with the product you're purchasing, and try to make the best decisions based on that. For us, one of the big decisions we made with both of those ones are there's a lot of utilities of significance that already have those implemented. So we've got a really great peer group. The second we added Maximo, we're in there with maybe, and it's not a water use specific, asset management system. It's used in all different industries, but within the water industry, there's hundreds of utilities that have it implemented, and they have conferences specifically for Maximo's implementation for water, wastewater, electric, gas utilities. Very helpful on that end. That's the best advice I can give you.
Great. Well, that's a great segue into our next question, which is, when deciding on new technologies, which ones have really delighted you in the usefulness of the data and ended up generating, and how did they exceed your expectations as far as positive impacts on your workforce and business process?
That's not a softball question. Who asked that question? Don't let them ask any more questions. So what has exceeded our expectations? I don't think I got enough information yet to fully answer that. Certainly, I think it's so expensive to go to smart meters, but that will provide a lot of information that would be very helpful to have that done. So even if you're not going to the customer scale, but if you do district metering, the more information you can get to how you're moving water around your system, I think is really helpful. We've had some issues recently with disinfection byproducts, and really being able to track water age and stuff to your system, I think is really helpful. The model itself can be a really great tool when it comes to getting data and understanding what's going on in your system. So all those, I think our distribution SCADA system has been a pretty significant upgrade. More people have access to see the data. You know, it's still very controlled about who can make changes to it, but we're able to see things more real time, and it helps us make decisions and decide when we need to make urgent calls. I think that's the best I can tell you. You know, sometimes the tablets have worked well, sometimes it's been the laptops have worked well, and some folks like the road version of Maximo, the smart tablet version, and some like the original desktop version. So you got to listen to your staff and figure that out. And I don't have the full answer on what's providing us the best data. We're still trying to figure those answers out.
Okay, well, you're very intuitive at teeing up your next question. So you've talked about data-driven culture, and the question really is: are you finding a uniform cultural transformation across your teams? And it's another multi-parter here. So, are there challenges that some of your teams are experiencing in the cultural transformation? And have there also been surprises in the rate of data-driven culture adoption in areas of your organization?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it kind of goes back to the answer to the change within the organization. I would say, with very few exceptions, our associates are doing what we've asked them to do, and they're doing it to the best of their ability. They're not just intentionally giving us bad data so they can knock out a work order quickly. I think for the most part, folks want to do the right thing, and as long as we train them correctly and continue to train them correctly, and let them know why we need the data and what it's about, they want to do the right things. Now, some folks may not be capable because they just aren't very technically savvy. So sometimes you have to work around that, right? You either have to give them the right tools or the right partner to help them fill out the work orders, that type of stuff. But I really believe, with few exceptions, folks want to do the right thing. Some of these products are really hard to use, and we've been very intentional trying to simplify our work orders so that extraneous data fields don't show up. Why do they need a data field that is irrelevant to what work order they're working on? And it just complicates things and clouds the screen. So when we configure these products, many times it's easy just to remove a field or add a field based on what particular type of work needs. So we try to do that. And then I would say the biggest challenge has been getting folks to stop and think about what data would be helpful for them in doing their daily job. And I'm talking more about management, department heads, even executive leadership. You know, what data is out there right now that would be really helpful for us that we already have available, and how do we get it in the hands of those that can take it and look at it and help us make decisions? And we haven't found the perfect solution to that yet. We've got a lot of consultants want to come in here and talk to us about it, but so far I've never seen anybody show me a dashboard that said, yep, that's the one. I want that. Let's do that across the board. We're still trying to figure out the right solution to get the right data in the right people's hands, but it's been really hard even to get them to engage long enough for them to look at the data and say, no, that's not what I need something else.
Okay. I'm going to move us on to closing up, but before you all go, I want to make sure that our next webinar is on your radar, because it is going to be a very good session, and it's on affordability and alternative pricing, Wednesday, June 18th, same time, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. We have Emily Simonson with U.S. Water Alliance, Andy Burnham with Stantec, and Verna Arnett with Beaufort Jasper Water. and Sewer Authority. And they'll be talking about an interesting model that is stems from it explores we'll explore a rate making model, developed in a U.S. Water Alliance partnership with Stantec. And it's an outgrowth of Greater Cincinnati Waterworks participation in a 9-city U.S. Water Alliance pilot program that looked at developing alternative affordability practices with a goal of preventing water shutoffs for low-income people. So the model is an opportunity to avoid common challenges and achieve a greater equity by reducing water bills for most low-income households, and to do so all while preserving revenue and improving financial resilience. So again, we will be sending around the replay from today's webinar later today in an email, and we'll include the links from today's presentation in that email as well. I want to thank our speaker one more time, and our sponsor, and all of you for attending and offering such great questions today. That's it for our broadcast. Thanks again for your time, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.